Hello and welcome to another video of rants and yarn with two best friends. Stefanie is again not here because she's busy. We'll catch up we'll be in another video at some point when she's unbusy with work, with both her jobs, and she has a little time she has time. Well, not much has been going on. Just issues with customer service in stores, not everyone being competent and doing their job as should be, leave sale price tags on until the last minute and then change them out, I mean, it makes it hard for people to make purchases when sale tags are removed and it's only visible at the register, because then maybe you want to buy the item on sale because you can only afford sale items, but then you buy an item that's not on sale because there was no tag to tell you so, or you can't use your coupon because that item's not actually $18, it's $14, and you have to buy more in order to make it worth it. And I'm like, excuse me. So those kinds of things make it annoying, or like if you go back and have to make a refund for whatever reason, I know the person is having a hard time doing the refund, so they get upset and frustrated because they see the long line behind them and stuff like that, And I mean, no matter what, they have to help each person, no matter how much how big or small an issue is and how long it takes. Then get added help. But, you call extra hands, and then people you call don't respond. You get frustrated and it makes life hard, So let's just drink our coffee and get on to the next article we have for discussion. The article I have for you today is How Millennials Become the Burnout Generation. Yes, because now, the younger you are, now you have to work more. Now you have to work harder for your stretch your dollar. And it sucks. So that's why we get burned out faster. Because we're doing more and running around more in our life, and it's costing us. Try farther for work longer hours, work harder hours. You know what I mean. The daily grind. Because even if you don't work long hours, you come home to other responsibilities. And the single people that don't, they still have the same grind anyway. To work hard, to work grueling, you can say grueling hours because you're stuck in traffic and you're stuck, and it's all like that. It's about, and then you're like, oh, well, I have to keep up with maintaining myself and doing X, Y, and Z, and it gets hard. I couldn't figure out why small, straightforward tasks on my to-do list felt so impossible. The answer is both. More complex and far simpler than I expected. Yes, of course. When you look at your to-do list and it's so grueling and so it looks long and grueling, like even if you don't write it out or if it's all mental or however you keep your to-do list, when you look at it or think about it, like you get so frazzled and you already feel like you're gonna panic and burn out. So because people look at it in the big thing, they don't know how to break it down and just take it one step at a time, which I have to do, or else I get anxiety and panic across the board. And here's a picture of, well, I don't really know what this is a picture of, but I guess follicles of some sort showed out when you're burned out. Oh, it's like, shows like burnt pieces of something and shows how you're burnt out. Yeah, it's like a picture of showing burnout. Yeah, a picture depicting burnout. Yeah. tried to register for the 2016 election, but it was beyond the deadline by the time I tried to do it. A man named Tim, age 27, explained to New York Magazine last fall, "I hate mailing stuff. It gives me anxiety." Tim was outlining the reason why he, like 11 other millennials interviewed by the magazine, probably wouldn't vote in the 2018 midterm election. "The amount of work logically isn't that much," he continued. "Fill out a form, mail it, go to the specific place on a specific day. But those kinds of tasks can be hard for me to do if I'm not enthusiastic about it. I may not be enthusiastic to vote, but I still do all of the above, you know? And it takes me no time at all. You know, I just read ahead when they send me the mail stuff, the information in the mail. I already check the things and people I want to vote for, and when I go there, I just copy that onto the sheet, and my mailing place is so close to my voting poll is so close to my house. I just do it, and boom, I'm done. You know, I don't have to think about it or worry about it after that. I go on with my daily tasks for the day after that. But some people are different like that. They get more anxiety about things that we don't realize is a reason to have anxiety about. Like, sometimes I get anxiety about something that people look at me like, really? It's not even something to have anxiety about. Tim goes on to admit that some friends had helped him register to vote, and he planned to probably make it happen for the midterms. But his explanation, even though, as he noted, his struggle in this case was caused in part by his ADHD, triggered the contemporary tendency to dunk on millennials' inability to complete seemingly basic tasks. Grow up, the overall sentiment goes. Life is not that hard. So this is the way the world ends. HuffPost congressional reporter Matt Fuller tweeted, "Not with a bang, but with a bunch of millennials who don't know how to mail things." Well, because they're going to make light of the situation, saying it's just this thing. But it's not. People have issues about doing simple tasks. Like ADHD can cause you, like in this instance for him, to have trouble going and voting, you know? He got help registering. Now he probably has to get help getting him to the voting poll and actually doing the voting, you know? Go to the screen, pick and touch and vote, you know? It's just, but you can't always have someone there to help you 24/7, you know? Explanations like Tim's are at the core of the millennial reputation. We're spoiled, entitled, lazy, and failures at what's come to be known as adulting. A word invented by millennials as a catch-all for the task of self-sufficient existence. Expressions of adulting do often come off as privileged astonishment at the realities of, well, life. That you have to pay bills and go to work. That you have to buy food and cook it for you want to eat. To cook it if you want to eat it. That actions have consequences. Adulting is hard because life is hard, or as a Bustle article admonishes its readers, everything is hard if you want to look at it that way. And I agree with that. Everything is only hard if you want to look at it that way. Because once you turn 18 and become an adult, most parents, you end up in college and you have to push and do things for yourself. Or you end up in the milieu. If you're like lucky, then you don't have to worry about the financial aspect. You have to worry about studying and just going and feeding yourself, going and buying food to make and cook for yourself, you know? That's what it comes to it, you know? And to budget, you have to learn how to budget the money you're given. Maybe you don't have to work for it, but if your parents, say, give you an allowance, you have to make it stretch for the whole month. Because some parents who have money to give you, like my parents did, they're not going to just sit there and give you whatever you ask for every week because you blew through it. They give you enough for maybe the week or maybe say the month based on what they think you will need. This is how much I think they'll need for food. And if they really think that you're frivolous with the money, or you're trying to explain to them why you need more, well then you can send them the receipts and they can see, oh well, this is what they were doing with it and this is what they want, they're gonna be nice because they're like, okay, well, we want her to be social too, so we'll help her out in that aspect as well. Just she can't go overboard, but stuff like that. Named, I guess I was missing most of it. Oh well, you know how when these things get printed out, these articles, they'll get printed out all weird. Anyway, name. So, missing, but anyway, moving on with whatever I got here. But as I fumed about this 27-year-old's post-office anxiety, I was deep in a cycle of tendency developed over the last 5 years that I've come to call errand paralysis. I'd put something on my weekly to-do list and I'd roll over it one week the next, haunting me for months. See, there's these things on your to-do list that you have to do. You miss the deadline because you're have too much anxiety about just going and getting it done. And I know people out there like that. And I get frustrated at those people because I don't understand them. Because no matter how bad my anxiety gets when I have it, I still trudge on and have to do those things. Because 99% of the stuff I do is for work. And there's that 1% that I have to do for myself. Like getting all my bills paid and getting my stuff deposited in the bank for myself. So, I have to trudge on even through anxiety. But you have to face that. And when you get that anxiety, you just take a break. And if you can't end your day and you have to keep going, you just take that hour break and then push on. Or just continue it tomorrow if you can. But you have to get them all done. Because they're on your to-do list for a purpose. But it's just mentally, if you need help, find someone that can help you. But sometimes, most of the time, everybody's busy. So you just have to find it in yourself to be able to do it yourself. Or get therapy where someone can help you overcome these anxieties. I'm in therapy for other reasons as well as that, and I'm able to deal with these things. None of these tasks were that hard. Getting knives sharpened, taking boots to the cobbler, registering my dog for a new license, sending someone a signed copy of my book, scheduling an appointment with a dermatologist, donating books to the library, vacuuming my car. A handful of emails, one from a dear friend, one from a former student, asking how my life was going, festered in my personal inbox, which I use as a sort of alternative to-do list, to the point that I started calling it the inbox of shame. See, these knives, to an ordinary person, these tasks seem mundane, just go and do it. But some other people, who knows what's triggering the anxiety behind them getting all these things done, who knows? It's not as if I were slacking in the rest of my life. I was publishing stories, writing 2 books, making meals, executing a move across the country, planning trips, paying my student loans, exercising on a regular basis, but when it came to the mundane, the medium priority, the stuff that wouldn't take my job easier or my work better, I avoided it. Okay, here's what it is. It's the jobs that don't seem to have meaning in your life. But sending someone a signed copy of your book should have meaning in your life. Reconnecting with dear friends should have meaning in your life. I understand the other mundane things. We're getting knives sharpened, taking boots to the cobbler, registering your dog, getting an appointment with a dermatologist, going to the library, vacuuming your car. Those things may seem mundane because you don't really see the bigger picture and purpose in life for you doing those. car, seeing the dermatologist to get you looking, feeling bad, I can see it, but maybe they don't because they're like, it's not helping the bigger picture of my life. Like eating, if I don't eat, they can see it. But these mundane tasks, you can't see the bigger picture in life from it, and I can understand now how some people can't get through doing them. But then that's where it comes to, if you can't, then hire someone to do it for you. Hire someone to make appointments for you. Hire someone to do those mundane tasks for you. You can pay someone to say, come to your house, do those tasks. You pay them back for gas, and then you pay them however much you want per task, or for how many hours it took them to do everything as a whole, however you want to do it, and then it would ease your life. Like me, I'd love to get paid to help someone do that. So if any of you need help doing that, you can reach down below in the comments and comment me, and I can help you get all your mundane tasks done. Just pay me a fair price, reimburse me for gas, and we're all good, Or we can negotiate something if you don't have that much money to do it, but you still need help. But you have to compensate me somehow. I'm not gonna totally do it for free. It's not as... Okay. My shame about these errands expands with each day. I remind myself that my mom was pretty much always doing errands. Did she like them? No, but she got them done. So why couldn't I get it together, especially when the tasks were all, at first glance, easily completed? I realized that the vast majority of these tasks shared a common denominator. Their primary beneficiary is me, but not in a way that would actually drastically improve my life. They are seemingly high effort, low reward tasks, and they paralyze me, not unlike the way registering to vote paralyzed millennial Tim. So, there you have it. She explained it as I have mentioned it already, and as I have mentioned it already, she mentioned it herself as well, because you don't see the bigger picture. Well, of course, her mom did it. Maybe she was a stay-at-home mom, and those were her errands every day, to do those menial things. They had no meaning to her personally in progressing her life, but they had meaning to her family. She had to go X this for her kid, X that, or, even if she did have a job, when outside of her job she had to do those X things, but it was not just for herself, but for her family. And of course, maybe her mom was better able to see the bigger picture of it all than she did. Tim and I are not alone in this paralysis. My partner was so stymied by the multi-step, incredibly and purposefully confusing process of submitting insurance reimbursement forms for every single week of therapy that for months he just didn't send them and ate over $1,000. Another woman told me she had a package sitting unmailed in the corner of her room for over a year. A friend admitted he's absorbed hundreds of dollars in clothes that don't fit because he couldn't manage to return them. Errand paralysis, post office anxieties, they're different manifestations of the same affliction. Yeah, everybody is afflicted with something. But if it was an easier process to submit insurance reimbursements, if you did it once, twice, 3 times, then you just do them every week and send them in. It wouldn't matter. Because I would want to be reimbursed for my thousands of dollars and not just spend it, And I look at the bigger picture, saving me $1,000. And when I see packages that are unmailed, or I see stuff that I bought that I want to send people, sitting there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to grab one and send it this Monday, send one Monday. Because I just don't like unfinished business just sitting around. That's what bothers me and gives me stress. Some people just get stressed trying to do those mundane things. And then a year passes by and it's still there and it's like, oh, well, that birthday present never got them. But then that person forgot about it and it doesn't matter anymore. But it's going to sit there and pick up dust for like, who God knows how long. And buying clothes that don't fit, if you don't want to return them, try reselling it. But some people, like me, I have a hard time reselling clothes. But I have links down below, clothes and stuff I'm trying to resell, so please check my links down below. I want all my stuff to sell so that I have room for new things that make me happy in my closet. Because I don't want to just give them away. I want to give them to somebody else who can appreciate it. And if the prices are too much for you to afford, you can always send me a message and we can negotiate the price, and so that you can get the item if you really want it, and you'll find purpose for it in your life. Come on. I have LuLaRoe Irmas and some other things for sale. Please, please, please help me out. Not, maybe you can share it with a friend. Maybe someone you know that can benefit from those items. And yeah, now they have it called errand paralysis. People who don't. I mean, if you can't handle it and do it yourself, hire someone to do it for you. It will make a world of a difference. Just pay them like, okay, can you mail this for me? Here's $5. You know? You reimburse them for how much it costs to mail that item. And then give them another money for gas or for doing that errand for them, or give them something, you know. Talk it out with that person, how you're gonna reimburse them for it. But of course you have to, no doubt, give them back the money they spent for mailing the item for you, if you didn't give them money ahead of time. For the past 2 years, I've refused cautions from editors, from family, from peers, that I might be edging into burnout. To my mind, burnout was something aid workers or high-powered lawyers or investigative journalists dealt with. It was something that could be treated with a week on the beach. I was still working, still getting other stuff done. Of course I wasn't burned out. Well, because if you're still working and getting all your work done, you don't think of yourself as burning out. But then you know you have to do those other stuff in order to live and get a paycheck and survive in life. Like eating, buying food to eat, and doing your actual job that gets you paid. But then after all that's done, you probably just sit in a rut and don't want to do anything anymore. And of course that's what causes that's burnout, but then you don't realize it's burnout. But the more I tried to figure out my errand paralysis, the more the actual parameters of burnout began to reveal themselves. Burnout and the behaviors and weight that accompany it aren't in fact something we can cure by going on vacation. It's not limited to workers in actual high-stress environments. It's not a temporary affliction. It's the millennial condition. It's our base temperature. It's our background music. It's the way things are. It's our lives. That realization recast my recent struggles. Why can't I get this mundane stuff done? Because I'm burned out. Why am I burned out? Because I've internalized the idea that I should be working all the time. My life reinforced it, explicitly and implicitly, since I was young. Life has always been hard, but many millennials are unequipped to deal with the particular ways in which it's become hard for us. I mean, there's easy ways to do it. Hire someone to do it for you, or you just make a phone call and you can just create a label online, and then your mailman will pick up your package for you. You can pay for it online and print out a label and all that stuff. I mean, if you shop online, you can just ship the items for free, and they're included with labels so you can print out or come in the package, and then you don't have to go to the store. You can just do it all from your home. But maybe they're all burned out to even get to that mundane thing as well. So, hire someone to do it all for you. But if you don't have enough money to do that, and you should be doing it all yourself, well, maybe someone will volunteer to help you. Maybe a friend will come over and do it voluntarily and help you. Do one task a week for you. Let's say this Saturday it's returning clothes for you. Great! And you can hang out with them after that for a little while. Or going to the post office for you to mail something. Great! I'll do it for you this Saturday. And then you get that time to hang out with them too, in between. I mean, you have to find a way to ease your life and still get things done. But yeah, it is the millennial burnout. And they don't realize how back in the day, people had it harder. You had to wash your own clothes on a washboard. And that took how long? Because once you wrung out all the soap, you gotta hang it to dry, and it's a whole task. And how many clothes can you get done in a day? That's why you have to do it you have to do it every day, because you probably can't get 10 clothes washed in a day because it's so hard. Maybe you'll get 5. And then the next day, So what now? Should I meditate more, negotiate for more time off, delegate tasks within my relationship, perform acts of self-care, and institute timers on my social media? How, in other words, can I optimize myself to get these mundane tasks done, theoretically cure my burnout? Millennials have aged into our 30s. That's the question we keep asking and keep failing to adequately answer. But maybe that's because it's the wrong question altogether. So as I said, delegate tasks within my relationship. There you go. That's what I would do. The youngest are 22, the oldest like me somewhere around 38. That has required a shift in the way people within and outside of our generation configure their criticism. We're not feckless teens anymore. We're grown-ass adults, and the challenges we face aren't fleeting but systematic. Well, if your kid has a car and they're 16, send them to do those mundane tasks for you. And give them something for doing it for you. That works too if you have kids. But if you don't have kids yet, and your other half won't do it for you if you're married, you're out of luck. But if you're single, outsource the task. Or find a friend who'll do it. Hang out with your friend for an hour, and then on their way home tell them, can you please do this? Here's $5, Or just PayPal me for how much it costs and I'll reimburse you. Many of the behaviors attributed to millennials are the behaviors of a specific subset of mostly white, largely middle-class people born between 1981 and 1996. But even if you're a millennial who didn't grow up privileged, you've been impacted by the societal and cultural shifts that have shaped the generation. Our parents, a mix of young boomers and old Gen Xers, reared us during the age of relative economic and political stability. As with previous generations, there was an expectation that the next one would be better off, both in terms of health and finance, than that one that had come before. Yeah, because new things are coming out. You think, it'll be better and better. But it's starting to look otherwise. It's starting to be like this and a little bit like that. The scale is always tipped. But as millennials enter mid-adulthood, the prognosis has been proven false. Financially speaking, most of us lag far behind where our parents were when they were our age. We have far less saved, far less equity, far less stability, and far more student debt. The greatest generation had the Depression and the GI Bill. Boomers had the golden age of capitalism. Gen X had deregulation and trickle-down economics. The millennials, we've got venture capital, but we've also got the 2008 financial crisis, the decline of the middle class, and the rise of the 1%, and the steady decay of unions and stable full-time employment. See, the millennials got it hard. They hardly have anything. It was easier for people back in the day, in my opinion. As American business became more efficient, better at turning a profit, the next generation needed to be positioned to compete. We couldn't just show up with a diploma and expect to get and keep a job that would allow us to retire at 55, in a market shift from the generations before. Possible. Well, now take a look. People have to work until 65. People work until they're 65 and then pull out their money. Some people wait until they're 70 and then pull out their retirement money. And they keep getting money each month, but then they still have to work on top of that, another part-time, maybe a full-time job just to supplement themselves. It sucks. And that process began very early. In kids these days, human capital in the making of millennials. Malcolm Harris lays out the myriad ways in which our generation has been trained, tailored, primed, and optimized for the workplace. First in school, then through secondary education, starting at very young children. Risk management used to be a business practice. Harris writes now it's our dominant child-rearing strategy. Depending on your age, this idea applies to what our parents did or didn't allow us to do. Play on dangerous playground structures, go out without cell phones, drive without an adult in the car, and how they allowed us to do things we did do. Learn, explore, eat, play. Back in the day, that's what they did. It was my day. But now, oh, heaven forbid. Harris points to practices that we now see as standard as a means of optimizing children's play. An attitude often described as intensive parenting. Running around the neighborhood has become supervised play dates. Unstructured daycare has become preschool. Neighborhood kick the can or pick-up games have transformed to highly regulated, organized league play that spans the year. Unchanneled energy, diagnosed as hyperactivity, became medicated and disciplined. Hyperactivity? That kids need to be out more, do things more to combat their hyperactivity. Because you structure them so much they don't have time to just run around and lose it all. And back in the day, like the movie Sandlot, they organized their own baseball play structure. There was nobody there who organized it for them. We didn't try to break the system, since it's not how we'd been raised. We tried to win it. My childhood at the late 80s and early 90s was only partially defined by the kind of parents' optimization wandering, largely because I lived in a rural town in North Idaho, where such structured activities were scarce. I spent my recess time playing on the very dangerous skateboard, when my brother and I were the only kids we knew who did. I didn't do internships in high school or in college, because they weren't yet a standardized component of either experience. I took piano lessons for fun, not for my future. I didn't have an SAT prep class. I took the one AP class available to me and applied to college on paper, by hand, based on brochures and short write-ups in a book of best colleges. See, I didn't have... For me, it wasn't that bare minimum. But I did do piano lessons for fun. And, well, we're not going to go into the whole college thing because I took a different course. But I did a course way into it, and it was more involved when I got there. But if you were in college when I was like newly born, out and starting in the world, then yeah, it was like that. But even in my day when I was fully developed and taking piano lessons just for fun, it was just for fun. It wasn't like I was going to be the world-class pianist. I don't even play piano now anymore, or have one in my house for that matter. But that was the beginning of the end of that attitude toward parenting, toward children's leisure time, toward college selection, and not just among bourgeoisie-educated, stereotypical helicopter parents. In addition to intensive parenting, millennial parents are also characterized by vigilante parenting behaviors, where, as sociologist Linda M. Bloom describes, A mother's unyielding watchfulness and advocacy for a child takes on the imperative of a lone moral quest. Me, at that time, I was allowed to play outside. I was allowed to walk my dog down the hill and back up, you know? It wasn't there was no reason to be structured. Oh, I did do swim lessons for fun. I did the swim team for fun, but that was structured, but I liked doing it, not because of anything else. Recent research has found that vigilante behaviors cut across race and class lines. Maybe an upper-class suburban family is invested in their child getting into an Ivy League school, while a mom in Philadelphia didn't get a chance to go to college herself and is invested in her daughter becoming the first in the family to make it to college. The goals are somewhat different, but the supervision, the attitude, the risk assessment, and the campaign to get that child to that goal are very similar. You want that goal for your child, but your child has to want that goal for herself. If that child wants that goal for herself, she will do all it takes to get there. But if it's just you pushing it and they don't really want it, they're still probably going to get there, but not at the expense of their satisfaction. It wasn't until after college that I began to see the results of these attitudes in action. 4-year post-graduation, alumni would complain that the school had filled with nerds. No one even parties on a Tuesday. I laughed at the eternal refrain. These younger kids, what dorks. We were way cooler. But not until I returned to campus years later as a professor did I realize just how fundamentally different those students' orientation to school was. There were still obnoxious frat boys, and fancy sorority girls. They skipped fewer classes. They religiously attended office hours. They emailed at all hours, but they were all anxious grade grabbers, paralyzed at the thought of graduating, regularly stymied by assignments that called for creativity. They'd been guided closely all their lives, and they wanted me to guide them as well. They were, in a word, scared. Because nobody gave them the freedom to just be creative and explore. And it was always parents guiding them to do this, and helping them with X, Y, and Z that they needed their teachers to do so. And what happens when you get into the real world? You need your boss to do so too. Or you learn how to do it for your own kids. Which will happen in itself too. Because that's how my parents were at a point until they realized, heck, whatever, it's not gonna end up anywhere. It's not gonna end up anywhere anyway. Whatever, my kid's gonna be and do whatever they dang well please. It's hard. Every graduating senior is scared to some degree of the future, but this was on a different level. When my class left their liberal arts experience, we scattered to temporary gigs. I worked at a dude ranch, another friend nannied for the summer, one got a job on a farm in New Zealand, others became raft guides and transitioned to ski instructors. We didn't think our first job was important. It was just the job would eventually meanderingly lead to the job. And that's what we all do. We have to start here and then work our way up to here. It wasn't you got out and automatically with your degree you're here for a long while and then you finally get to here. You're like at the base, you do whatever job until you get the job. And that's how I was. That's how I was, and I had a career goal in mind, but until I could really make it to something, it was nothing. But now I'm just doing what I'm doing now and content with it wherever I end up in the future. But those students were convinced that their first job out of college would not only determine their career trajectory, but also their intrinsic value for the rest of their lives. I told one student, whose dozens of internship and fellowship applications yielded no results, that she should move somewhere fun, get any job, and figure out what interests her and what kind of work she doesn't want to do. A suggestion that prompted wailing. But what'll I tell my parents? She said, I want a cool job I'm passionate about. See, it all boils down to what are you going to tell your parents? Because your parents are going to say, well, you didn't get that job, and they're just going to harp about you one way or another. I mean, if you don't get the job, then just work a job so you have money until you figure out yourself, and then be like, okay, I'll just move into this direction and try to find something in this way, until you land the job and like, wow, I could see myself being here for X number of years, These expectations encapsulate the millennial rearing project, in which students internalize the need to find employment that reflects well on their parents. Steady, decently paying, recognizable as a good job. That's also impressive to their peers, at a cool company, and fulfills what they've been told has been the end goal of all this childhood optimization, doing work that you're passionate about. Whether that job is as a professional sports player, a Patagonia social media manager, then checking all of those boxes. Or at least that's the theory. So what happens when millennials start the actual search for the holy grail career? They start adulting, but it doesn't feel at all like the dream that had been promised. Of course, your parents tell you if you do this and this will happen. But I'm not saying the times change, I'm just saying things happen in life that don't get you where you want to be the same way it worked out for your parents. Like most old millennials, my own career path was marked by two financial catastrophes. In the early 2000s, when many of us were either first entering college or the workforce, the dot-com bubble burst. The resultant financial rubble wasn't as extensive as the 2008 crisis, but it tightened the job market and torpedoed the stock market, which indirectly affected millennials who had been counting on parents' investments to get them through college. When I graduated with a liberal arts degree in 2003 and moved to Seattle, the city was still and the housemate worked as an When I was graduated with a liberal arts degree in 2008 and moved to Seattle, the city was still recovering, and my housemate worked as an assistant. A friend resorted to selling what would later be known as subprime mortgages. See, everyone took a hit, and now you just take whatever job you can get that's gonna make it for you to survive in the world. Those 2 years as a nanny were hard. I was stultifyingly bored and commuted an hour in each direction. But it was the last time I remember not feeling burned out. I had a cell phone. We couldn't even send texts. I checked my email once a day on a desktop computer in my friend's room. Because I'd been placed through a nanny agency, my contract included health care, sick days, and paid time off. I made $32,000 a year and paid $500 a month in rent. I had no student debt from undergrad. My car was paid off. I didn't save much, but had money for movies and dinners out. I was intellectually unstimulated, but I was good at my job, caring for 2 infants, and had clear demarcations between when I was on and off the clock. See, you're just settling for that job, and it's good, it's decent, it pays for everything, and you're still able to go out and have fun, and it's cool, but even if it's unfulfilling, you're just satisfyingly happy to have it in some way to say that you're comfortable. Should have been putting away money for saving, but whatever. Because she didn't have any student debt and her car was paid off, so she wasn't worried oh my god, OMG, Then those 2 years ended and a bulk of my friend group began the exodus to grad school. We enrolled in PhD programs, law school, med school, architecture school, education, master's programs, MBAs. It wasn't because we were hungry for more knowledge. It was because we were hungry for secure, middle-class jobs, and had been told, correctly or not, those jobs are available only through grad school. Once we were in grad school and the microgeneration behind us was emerging from college into the workplace, the 2008 financial crisis hit. So you see, boom! You're told, even now, in 2019, you're still told, you need that grad education, you need that MBA, you need that to get the hair. And I'm like, really? Ugh. Well, we'll see what happens. I never thought the system was equitable. I knew it was winnable for only a small few. I just believed I could continue to optimize myself to become one of them. Because that's your main goal, to be one of them, and to get yourself to the top. The crisis affected everyone in some way. But at least she wanted more for herself. She went through it all, too. The crisis affected everyone in some way, but the way it affected more experienced workers and the newly laid-off filled applicant pools for lower and entry-level jobs, once largely reserved for recent graduates. We couldn't find jobs, or could only find part-time jobs, jobs without benefits, or jobs that were actually multiple side hustles cobbled together into one job. As a result, we moved back home with our parents, we got roommates, we went back to school, we tried to make it work. We were problem solvers, after all, and thought that if we just worked harder, it would work out. See? You see? Just getting along. You see? These jobs, it's for the market pool, lower and entry level. See, it's like when you come out of college, that's for you, those jobs. But once you've come out of grad school and you've done it all, those jobs aren't supposed to be for you anymore. You're supposed to get up here. But then you end up back down here again because there's a crash in the economy and you have to wait for it to get better. But now it's kind of getting better, 2019. But we'll see. On the surface, it did work out. The economy recovered. Most of us moved out of our parents' houses. Yeah, see, people had to live home, get roommates, make ends meet, tighten up. And then things got better, you see. And then, you know, like now, it's getting better, too. And then, yeah, most of us moved out of our parents' house, we found jobs. But what we couldn't find was financial security. Because education, grad school, undergrad, vocational school, online, was situated as the best and only way to survive. Many of us emerged from those programs with loan payments that our post-graduation prospects failed to offset. The situation was even more dire if you entered a for-profit school where the average total debt for a 4-year degree is $39,950 and the job prospects post-graduation are even bleaker. See, you can still move out and do all these things, but then you're still settled with that student loan now, and you're so who knows. It's just hard. As I continued through grad school, I accumulated more and more debt that I rationalized, like so many of my generations, as the only means to achieve the end goal of 1. A good job that would 2. Be or sound cool, and 3. Allow me to follow my passion. In this case, full-time, tenure-track employment as a media studies professor. In the past, pursuing a PhD was a generally debt-free endeavor. Academics worked their way towards their degree while working as teaching assistants, which paid them cost of living and omitted the cost of tuition. But yeah, you could still sort of kind of do those these days, but it doesn't stretch as far as it used to. That model began to shift in the 1980s, particularly at public universities forced to compensate for state budget cuts. Teaching assistant labor didn't just keep PhD programs, but expanded them, even with dwindling funds to adequately pay these students. Still, thousands of PhD students clung to the idea of a tenure-track professorship, and the tighter the academic market became, the harder we worked. We didn't try to break the system, since that's not how we'd been raised. We tried to win it. Because you want to win the system and get that job after you graduate, so you're set for life. This is my job until I retire. and here are my benefits, or no benefits. But now you have to learn how to break the system so it can be better for you, not just try to win it. See how you can change it so it will progress with the future age. Sorry for the long video, you guys, but there's a lot to cover here. I never thought the system was equitable. I knew it was winnable for only a small few. I just believed I could continue to optimize myself to become one of them, and it's taken me years to understand the true ramifications of that mindset. I'd worked hard in college, but as an old millennial, the expectations for labor were tempered. We like to say we worked hard, played hard, and there were clear boundaries around each of these activities. Grad school, then, is where I learned to work like a millennial, which is to say, all the time. My new watchword was everything that's good is bad. Everything that's bad is good. Things that should have felt good, leisure, not working, felt bad because I felt guilty for not working. Things that should have felt bad, working all the time, felt good because I was doing what I thought I should and needed to do in order to succeed. And that equals burnout. We put up with companies treating us poorly because we don't see another option. We don't quit. We internalize that we're not striving hard enough, and we get a second gig. Equals burnout. In my master's program, graduate students' labor was arguably exploited, but we were unionized and compensated in a way that made emerging from the program without debt possible. Our health insurance was solid, class sizes are manageable, but that all changed. They exited it all. Have no bargaining power. I was paid enough to cover a month's rent in Austin with $200 left for everything else. I taught classes at large as 60 students on my own. The only people in my cohort who didn't have to take out loans had partners in real jobs or family money. Most of us were saddled with debt with the privilege of preparing ourselves for no job prospects. Either we kept working or we failed. See, that's how it is. If you don't have help, you're just going to sink, and you're just going to work at trying to keep yourself afloat. Once you pay off the student loans, you're good to go. But until then, you're just trying to stay afloat. And it hurts! It hurts bad! So we took those loans, with assurance from the federal government that if, after graduation, we went to a public service field, such as teaching at a college or university, and paid a percentage of our loans on time for 10 years, the rest would be forgiven. Last year, the first in which eligible graduates could apply for forgiveness, just 1% of applications were accepted. Okay. At least they're doing it. And at least 1% was accepted for debt forgiveness after 10 years. I mean, it's only 1% because they couldn't do everybody. Because maybe the budget doesn't allow it. But at least they're starting. We gotta be happy for something. But I mean, those people who didn't qualify, well, probably qualified, but they didn't get into that 1%. They weren't chosen to be in that 1%. Are all bummed out and they're all bummed out and like, why not me, you know? So that's what everyone's thinking and bummed about. But the next time around, maybe their turn will come up and they'll get lucky. When we talk about millennial student debt, we're not just talking about the payments that keep millennials from participating in American institutions like home ownership or purchasing diamonds. It's also about the psychological toll of realizing that something you'd been told and came to believe yourself would be worth it. Worth the loans, worth the labor, worth all the self-optimization. Is it? Because you were told if you did all of this, that you would end up being able to afford a house, being able to afford a diamond for your wife so you can get married if you're a guy, you know. And all that's all blown because some people, they just live together because they can't afford to get married and have that ring. Or maybe they get married and they don't have any of that. Or they just get a scrappy old, whatever you call it, ring and call it a day. Because Nowadays, you can't even afford that much. It's hard for those people who are down there. I'm down there, but thanks to my parents, I'm floating. One thing that makes that realization sting even more is watching others live their seemingly cool, passionate, worthwhile lives online. We all know what we see on Facebook or Instagram isn't real, but that doesn't mean we don't judge ourselves against it. I find that millennials are far less jealous of objects or belongings on social media than the holistic experience represented there. The sort of things that prompts people to comment, "I want your life." That inviolable mix of leisure and travel, the accumulation of pets and children, the landscapes inhabited, and the food consumed seem not just desirable, but balanced, satisfied, and unafflicted by burnout. Because you don't feel burnt out when you're going on that vacation. But when you come back, like when I do, but I don't let it rule my life. But there are some people who don't know how to get themselves out of it. And through work itself, it's rarely pictured. It's always there. Periodically gratifying. But most of the time, it's the thing you see. It's the thing you're getting away from. You worked hard enough to enjoy life. It's not a temporary affliction, the millennial condition. It's our base temperature. It's our background music. It's the way things are. It's our lives. The social media feed, the Instagram in particular, is thus evidence of the fruits of hard, rewarding labor and the labor itself. The photos and videos that introduce the most jealousy are those that suggest the perfect equilibrium. Work hard, play hard has been reached. But of course, for most of us, it hasn't. Posting on social media, after all, is a means of narrativizing our own lives. What we're telling ourselves our lives are like. And when we don't feel the satisfaction that we've been told we should receive from a good job that's fulfilling, balanced with a personal life that's equally so, the best way to convince yourself you're feeling it is to illustrate it for others. And you might lie or you might tell the truth. Who knows? But Instagram, Facebook doesn't always tell the whole truth, For many millennials, a social media presence on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter has also become an integral part of obtaining and maintaining a job. The purest example is the social media influencer, whose entire income source is performing and mediating the self online. But social media is also the means through which many knowledge workers, that is, workers who handle, process, or make meaning of information, market and brand themselves. Journalists use Twitter to learn about other stories, but they also use it to develop a personal brand, and following that can be leveraged. People use LinkedIn not just for resumes and networking, but to post articles that attest to their personality, their brand, But we're the ones who perfected and thus set the standard for those who do. Branding is a fitting word for this work, as it underlines what the millennial self becomes, a product. And as in childhood, the work of optimizing that brand blurs whatever boundaries remain between work and play. There is no off the clock when at all hours you could be documenting your on-brand experience or tweeting your on-brand observations. The rise of smartphones make these behaviors frictionless and thus more pervasive, more standardized. In the early days of Facebook, you had to take a picture of your digital camera, upload them to your computer, and post them in albums. Now your phone is a sophisticated camera, always ready to document every component of your life, in easily manipulated photos, in short video bursts, in constant updates to Instagram stories, and to facilitate the labor of performing the self for public consumption. See, that means you're always working, even if it's just for your personal life, not really for your work life. To adult is to complete your to-do list, but everything goes on the list and the list never ends. Just like my list, it never ends because there's always work to be done. And if you seem to see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel, you reach it, but then new work comes on after that After you see the light, you take a break, and then new work gets piled on, and it's like, oh my gosh. Or you sign up and take on more tasks, and you're like, oh my gosh. But that's just how society is. But the phone is also, and just as essentially, a fetter to the real workplace. Email and Slack make it so that employees are always accessible, always able to labor, even after they've left the physical workplace in the traditional 9-to-5 boundaries of paid labor. Attempts to discourage working off the clock misfire, as millennials read them not as permission to stop working, but a means to further distinguish themselves by being available anyway. These people are going to say, after I leave the office at 5 o'clock, no more, I'm not going to read a work email or do anything. But you see it, and then you just end up like, whatever, I'm going to do it. Because you think to yourself that if you wait until the next day and just work 9 to 5 to do it, you're never going to get caught up in your work. And it's always mentally how people see it. Or some people take their work home with their laptop and try to finish because they know the next day there'll be more things piled on top of that, and it'll be a never-ending brain. And they try to stay on top of it and maybe get a break somewhere there, but not always the case. We are encouraged to strategize and scheme to find places, times, and days. Author writes, efficiency is our existential purpose, and we are a generation of finely honed tools, crafted from embryos to be lean, mean production machines. But as sociologist Arnie L. Kalberg points out, that efficiency was supposed to give us more job security, more pay, perhaps even more leisure, in short, better jobs. See, if you have better jobs, then you get more money, and then you can have more. It's all going down to the ground. You just work yourself silly, and for what? Not much. Then if you take a break, you're not earning money, and it's like, OMG. So, it's a toss-up. Yet the more work we do, the more efficient we've proven ourselves to be, the worse our jobs become. Lower pay, worse benefits, less job security. Our efficiency hasn't bucked wage stagnation. Our steadfastness hasn't made us more valuable. If anything, our commitment to work, no matter how exploitative, has simply encouraged and facilitated our exploitation. We put up with companies treating us poorly because we don't see another option. We don't quit. We internalize that we have not strived hard enough, and we get a second gig. You know? Because you always want to just make more money and say, well, I'm so hot here, I have to get a second gig to make ends meet and make it work. And it's like, really? But that's how most of the society is, and it's really hard. All of this optimization as children, in college, online, culminates in the dominant millennial condition, regardless of class or race or location. Burnout. Burnout was first recognized as a psychological diagnosis in 1974, applied by psychologist Herbert Freudenberger to case of physical or mental collapse caused by overwork or stress. Burnout is a substantial different category than exhaustion, although it's related. Exhaustion means going to the point where you can't go any further. Burnout means reaching that point and pushing yourself to keep going, whether for days or weeks or years. Everybody will get burned out, but they just keep trudging. They just keep going and going and going until they're exhausted. It takes a toll on them, and they can't work anymore, and then what happens? But that's just like half of society nowadays. Everybody has to do that in order to live and survive. OMG. Finishing the massive work project never comes. The exhaustion experienced in burnout combines an intense yearning for this state of completion with a tormenting sense that it cannot be attained, that there is always demand or anxiety or distraction which can't be silenced. Josh Cohen, a psychoanalyst specializing in burnout, writes, "You feel burnout when you've exhausted all your internal resources, yet cannot free yourself of the nervous compulsion to go on regardless. It's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle. You just keep going round and round and round. In his writing about burnout, Cohen is careful to note that it has antecedents. Melancholic world weariness, as he puts it, is noted in the book of Ecclesiastes, diagnosed by Hippocrates, an endemic to the Renaissance, a symptom of bewilderment with a feeling of relentless change. In the late 1800s, neurasthenia, or nervous exhaustion, afflicted patients run down by the pace and strain of modern industrial life. Burnout differs in its intensity and its prevalence. It isn't an affliction experienced by relatively few that evidences the darker qualities of change, but increasingly and particularly among millennials, the contemporary condition. See, there were different conditions throughout the ages, starting from the book of Ecclesiastes all the way to the Renaissance, but they all had different names, and they were all different things. So each generation will have a different name of a different thing that's happening to them, that's causing them to drain out and all their battery power to go down to zero. People patching together a retail job with unpredictable scheduling while driving Uber and arranging childcare have burnout. Startup workers with fancy catered lunches, free laundry service, and 70-minute commutes have burnout. Academic teaching 4 adjunct classes and surviving on food stamps while trying to publish research in one last attempt at snagging a tenure track job have burnout. Freelance graphic artists operating on their own schedule without health care or paid time off have burnout. See? Because if you're 70-minute commute, it's not that bad. But it's still a lot. 70 minutes, that's an hour and 10 minutes. That's a lot, actually, in my opinion. But, people have to, drive Uber and work in their startup company until it really goes. But they still get burnout because of the commute. But I don't know why the free laundry and fancy lunches don't cover for it, don't make up for it, but who knows. But people who are teachers, surviving on food stamps, they just have to keep going and going to make it work for them. And of course they're going to burn out trying to get tenure. Freelance graphic artists, of course, they have to pay for their own health care. They have to keep working and working so they have money and make it work. I know they can make their own schedules, but still, they have to keep working a lot in order to cover everything. One of the ways to think through the mechanics of millennial burnout is by looking closely at the various objects and industries our generation, married later or not at all, and industries in our generation. Married later or not at all, and if or when we do, it's rare for one partner to have financial stability to set aside the traditional 2-month salary for a diamond engagement ring. Like I said earlier, not everybody has that money. Once they get married and buy that ring, they'll just buy a whatever. They can afford one. Maybe later in life they can upgrade to it, but nobody will ever. They'll say that later, but then later they're like, can't afford it because X, Y, and Z, And it's just the hardest thing ever. We're killing antiques, opting instead for fast furniture. Not because we hate our grandparents' old items, but because we're chasing stable employment across the country and lugging old furniture and fragile china costs money that we don't have. We've exchanged sit-down casual dining, Applebee's, TGI Fridays for fast casual, Chipotle, etc. Because if we're gonna pay for something, it should either be an experience worth waiting in line for, Cronuts, world famous barbecue, Momofuku, or efficient as hell. You're gonna want to wait in line for the latest. If you don't want to wait in line for the latest, then just get whatever fast food, because people don't have time to sit down and enjoy their meal no more. Because they're working their ass off. It's sad. And then of course you keep moving for your jobs, and you don't want to lug all the fragile stuff. And you put it in storage for what? You'll never be able to afford to lay it out for display. You're going to keep moving to the next job, to the better thing. Always on the go, 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 and then you burn out with nothing. Even the trends millennials have popularized, like athleisure, speak to our self-optimization. Yoga pants might look sloppy to your mom, but they're efficient. You can transition seamlessly from an exercise class to a Skype meeting to child pickup. Use Fresh Direct, Amazon, because the time they save allows us to do more work. Yeah, parents might not like you wearing because they don't look great, but let's say you wear a black pair of leggings. Okay, it will look good. I mean, you know, nobody's going to see it when you're in a Skype meeting. You only see the top half of you, so you just quickly change your shirt, brush up, and you'll look good for your next job, for your meeting. And who cares, leggings? You're in your car, pick up your kids, go home, whatever. And of course, it allows you to sit and work because you get your Fresh Direct and Amazon to your door, and you can move on with your life. You didn't have to go to the store and shop for it. You didn't have to, you know, do so much. You just had to go on your phone and pick all the items you wanted, but that didn't take too much. It takes a little more to just go to the store. This is why the fundamental criticism of millennials, that we're lazy and entitled, is so frustrating. Well, they think we're lazy and entitled because we can get everything mailed to our door and we don't have to go to the store and do it. But that's like menial to-do tasks that people don't want to do. They want to keep working, making more money where it's for them. We hustle so hard that we figured out how to avoid wasting time eating meals and are called entitled for asking for fair compensation and benefits, like working remotely, so we can live in affordable cities, adequate health care or 401k so we can theoretically stop working some point before the day we die. Well, of course, I'm lucky that I can work remotely and don't have to commute all the time to go there or actually move and stay there. But yeah, people want to be able to retire before they die. Some people, it doesn't happen. We're called whiny for talking frankly about just how much we do work or how exhausted we are by it. We talk about it, but people are like, oh, phooey, you know? They don't think that you're actually burned out. They just dismiss it and like, what? You couldn't even, you know. But because overworking for less money isn't always visible, because job hunting now means trawling LinkedIn, because overtime now means replying to emails in bed, the extent of our labor is often ignored and degraded. See, people don't understand how much overtime you do because they think of it as like still like your leisure time, but then you're not just trawling LinkedIn for fun. You're looking for job opportunities, checking email for work because you want to get ahead of yourself. You have so much to do, but you don't get paid enough or whatever. The thing about American labor, after all, is that we're trained to erase it. Anxiety is medicated. Burnout is treated with therapy that's slowly becoming normalized and yet still softly stigmatized. Time in therapy, after all, is time you could be working. I go to therapy every other week. Time I could be working. Boo-hoo, but we all need it. Some of us need it. Give us that time for ourselves. Gosh. No one would have told my grandmother that churning butter and doing the wash by hand wasn't work. By planning a week of healthy meals for a family of 4, figuring out the grocery list, finding time to get to the grocery store, and then preparing and cleaning up after those meals while holding down a full-time job, that's just motherhood, not labor. People always say, oh, it's just motherhood, it's part of being a mother. But that's work too. You get tired after you do all of that. People have to realize that. Millennial burnout often works differently among women, and particularly straight women with families. Part of this has to do with what's known as the second shift. The idea that women who've moved into the workplace do the labor of a job and then come home from the labor of a homemaker. See? A woman has 2 jobs now if they have to take care of their husbands or if they have kids. Nobody wants to acknowledge that. They just say, oh, what's the price you pay when you get married? Oh, what's the price you pay when you... A recent study found that mothers in the workplace spend just as much time taking care of their children as stay-at-home mothers did in 1975. One might think that when women work, the domestic labor decreases, or splits between both partners. But sociologist Judy Wackman found that in heterosexual couples, that simply wasn't the case. Less domestic labor takes place overall. Labor still largely falls on the woman. Come on, man! Pick up the slack! The labor that causes burnout isn't just putting away the dishes or folding the laundry. Tasks that can be readily distributed among the rest of the family. It's more to do with what French cartoonist Emma calls the mental load, a scenario in which one person in a family, often a woman, takes on a role akin to household management, project leader. The manager doesn't just complete chores. They keep the paper because it'll run out in 4 days. They're ultimately responsible for the health of the family, the upkeep of the home and their own bodies, maintaining a sex life, cultivating an emotional bond with their children, overseeing aging parents' care, making sure bills are paid and neighbors are greeted, and someone's home for a service call and holiday cards get in the mail, vacations are planned 6 months in advance and airline miles aren't expiring, and the dog's getting exercise. See? Even if you're not the one doing it, you still have to plan it and get someone to do it. So that's still work. Get it in your head, people. Women have told me that reading Emma's cartoon, which has gone viral many times over, brought them to tears. They'd never seen the particular work that they do describe, let alone acknowledge. For millennials, that domestic work is now supposed to check a never-ending number of aspirational boxes. Outings should be experiences. Food should be healthy and homemade and fun. Bodies should be sculpted. Wrinkles should be minimized. Clothes should be cute and fashionable. Sleep should be regulated. Relationships should be healthy. The news should be read and processed. Kids should be given personal attention and thriving. Millennial parenting is, as a recent New York Times article put it, relentless. Okay, look at me. I'm not always fashionable. I'm not skinny. I'm not all that. But I'm still doing and people don't realize it. Some people, even maybe my parents, but I'm still doing and doing all the time. And making time for adequate sleep. The media that surrounds us, both social and mainstream, from Marie Kondo's new Netflix show to the lifestyle influencer economy, tells us that our personal space should be optimized just as much as oneself and career. The end result isn't just fatigue, but enveloping burnout that follows us to home and back. The most common prescription is self-care. Give yourself a face mask. Go to yoga. Use a meditation app. And I do the face mask after I take a shower in the night. I use that time to myself, not just get out of the shower, get dressed, get some work done, go to bed. No. But much of self-care isn't care at all. It's an $11 billion industry whose end goal isn't to alleviate the burnout cycle, to provide further means of self-optimization. At least in it. And it's exhausting. The modern millennial, for the most part, views adulthood as a series of actions as opposed to a state of being. An article in Elite Daily explains, adulting therefore becomes a verb. To adult is to complete your to-do list. But everything goes on the list, and the list never ends. Of course, on your list is work stuff for work, and also home stuff for home. You may have two separate lists. Maybe your work for work is a 9 to 5 and it stays there. And then you come home and you have a to-do list for your home. Or maybe they're just commingled into one. And then you just attack them. But then once you're done with like 3, another 3 pop in at the end of it. And then you rewrite your list and it's a whole long mess again. Never ending. I'm really struggling to find the Christmas magic this year. One woman in a Facebook group focused on self-care recently wrote, I have 2 little kids, 2 and 6 months, and while we had fun reading Christmas stories and putting up Christmas lights, I mostly feel like it's just one to-do list superimposed over my already overwhelming to-do list. I feel so burned out. Commiseration or advice. You see, it's even on your to-do list to read a Christmas book to your kids, put up Christmas lights with your kids. Ah, then it becomes like a chore, not a fun task for you anymore. Maybe fun for the kids. That's one of the most ineffable and frustrating expressions of burnout. It takes things that should be enjoyable and flattens them into a list of tasks, intermingled with other obligations that should either be easily or dutifully completed. The end result is that everything, from wedding celebrations to registering to vote, becomes tinged with resentment and anxiety and avoidance. Maybe my inability to get the knife sharpened is less about being lazy, more about being too good for too long at being a millennial. Yeah, it's like, I'd rather do this because it makes me money and then go do the mundane. But I still need to do the mundane because my knives are dull and I can't cut a freaking vegetable for the love of God. That's one of the most ineffable and frustrating expressions of burnout. It takes things that should be enjoyable and flattens them into a list of tasks. There are a few ways to look at this original problem of errand paralysis. Many of the tasks millennials find paralyzing are ones that are impossible to optimize for efficiency, either because they remain stubbornly analog, the post office, or because companies have optimized themselves, their labor, so as to make the experience as arduous as possible for the user. Anything to do with insurance or bills or filing a complaint. Yeah, filing the complaint is the worst. Sometimes the inefficiencies are part of the point. The harder it is to submit a request for a reimbursement, the less likely you are to do it. The same goes for returns. Oh, I do it because I want my money back, but it's effing mother freaking hard. It's just, you know. Other tasks become difficult because of too many options, and what comes to be known as a decision fatigue. Yeah, because reimbursements, like, they said, oh, it had to be this way and that way, and I had to go multiple to the doctor and get, just emailing the doctor and trying to get. Finally, it worked, and I got my refund, but it was a task. I've moved around so much, from family practitioners and dentists and dermatologists. Finding a doctor, and not just any doctor, but one who will take your insurance, was accepting new patients, might seem like an easy task in the age of ZocDoc, but the array of options can be paralyzing without the recommendations of friends and family, which are in short supply when you move to a brand new town. Or just through trial and error. But then that's work in its progress. If you don't like something, you have to go find a work in progress. Other tasks are, well, boring. I've done them too many times. Same here. The payoff from completing them is too small. Boredom with the monotony of labor is usually associated with physical and/or assembly line jobs, but it's widespread among knowledge workers. Caroline Beaton, who had written intensively about millennials and labor, points out, the rise of the knowledge sector has simply changed the medium of monotony from heavy machinery to digital technology. Well, I guess that's helpful. We habituate to the modern workforce high intensity but predictable tasks. Because the stimuli don't change, we cease to be stimulated. The consequence is twofold. First, like a kind of Chinese water torture, each identical thing becomes increasingly painful. In defense, we become decreasingly engaged. I guess I could see that, but I still do them. My refusal to respond to a kind Facebook DM is thus symptomatic of the sheer number of calls for my attention online. Calls to read an article, calls to promote my own work, calls to engage wittily or defend myself from trolls or like a relative's picture of their baby. But come on! If it's for work, then do it! Man. To be clear, none of those explanations are, to my mind, exonerating. They don't seem like great or rational reasons to avoid doing things I know, in the abstract, I want or need to do. But dumb, illogical decisions are a symptom of burnout. We engage in self-destructive behaviors or take refuge in avoidance as a way to get off the treadmill of our to-do list, which helps explain one of the complaints about millennials' work. People who behave this way may, indeed, just not know how to put their heads down and work, but far more likely is that they're bad at work because of just how much work they do, especially when it's performed against the backdrop of financial precariousness. We are beginning to understand what ails us. It's not something an oxygen facial or treadmill desk can fix. In recent years, new scientific research has demonstrated the massive cognitive load on those who are financially insecure. Living in poverty is akin to losing 13 IQ points. Millennials of millennial Americans live in poverty. Millions of others straddle the line, getting by but barely so, often working contingent jobs, nothing left over for the sort of security blanket that can lighten the cognitive load. To be poor is to have very little mental bandwidth to make decisions, good or otherwise. As a parent, as a worker, as a partner, as a citizen, the steadier our lives, the more likely we are to make decisions that will make them even steadier. But steadiness isn't a word we use to describe contemporary American life, and depending on your religion, immigration status, ethnicity, and sexual identity, chances are that the election of Donald Trump has only made one's future and safety, employability, less stable. Health care and coverage of pre-existing conditions is seemingly always in question and or in peril, as are women's reproductive rights. War with North Korea looms. We've never recognized social media and smartphones as more toxic and more necessary. Our primary concern with the incredibly volatile stock market is how its temperament affects our day-to-day employment. The planet is dying. Democracy is under serious and what is under serious downfall. And what is anxiety if not the condition of trying to live under those conditions? Well, what can you say? Pundits spend a lot of time saying this is not normal. But the only way for us to survive day to day is to normalize the events, threats, the barrage of information, the costs and expectations of us. Burnout isn't a place to visit and come back from. It's our permanent residence. I guess. In his writing about burnout, the psychoanalyst Cohen describes the client who came to him with extreme burnout. He was the quintessential millennial child, optimized for perfect performance, which paid off when he got his job as a high-powered finance banker. He'd done everything right, and was continuing to do everything right in his job. One morning, he woke up, turned off his alarm, rolled over, and refused to go to work. He never went to work again. He was intrigued to find the termination of his employment didn't bother him. Really? I can't believe that, but I guess some people, that's just what ends up happening to them. In the movie version of this story, this man moves to an island to rediscover the good life, or figures out he loves woodworking and opens a shop. Oh yeah, I heard about that story. But that's the sort of fantasy solution that makes millennial burnout so pervasive. You don't fix burnout by going on vacation. You don't fix it through life hacks like Inbox Zero, or by using a meditation app for 5 minutes in the morning, or doing Sunday meal prep for the entire family, or start a bullet journal. What? I get gratification out of Inbox Zero and out of getting the meal prep done for the whole week so I don't have to worry about what I'm going to eat every single day. It's already there. I just pick it, eat it, you know? You don't... But I guess... Yeah, well, but that's just a temporary fix. I guess it's not a fix. It's a temporary fix, not a permanent fix. You don't fix it by reading a book on how to unfuck yourself. You don't fix it with vacation, or an adult coloring book, or anxiety baking, or the Pomodoro technique, or overnight fucking oats. The problem with holistic, all-consuming burnout is that there's no solution to it. You can't optimize it to make it end faster. You can't see it coming like a cold and start taking the burnout prevention version of Airborne. The best way to treat it is to first acknowledge it for what it is, not a passing ailment, but a chronic disease, and to understand its roots and its parameters. That's why people I talked to felt such relief, reading the Mental Load cartoon, and why reading Harris's book felt so cathartic for me. They don't excuse why we behave and feel the way we do. They just describe those feelings and behaviors and the larger systems of capitalism and patriarchy that contribute to them accurately. Yeah, you just find a way to make light of the situation. To describe millennial burnout accurately is to acknowledge the multiplicity of our lived lives. reality. That we're not just high school graduates or parents or knowledge workers, but all of the above. While recognizing our status quo, we're deeply in debt, working more hours and more jobs for less pay and less security, struggling to achieve the same standards of living as our parents, operating in the psychological and physical precariousness, all while being told that if we just work, dangling in front of us is the dream that the to-do list will end, or at least become far more manageable. But individual action isn't enough. Personal choices alone won't keep the planet from dying or get Facebook to quit violating our privacy. To do that, you need paradigm-shifting change, which helps explain why so many millennials increasingly identify with democratic socialism and are embracing unions. You're beginning to understand what ails us, and it's not something an oxygen facial or a treadmill desk can fix. But that's cool though, having a treadmill desk. You're walking while you're working. Our capacity to burn out and keep working is our greatest value. Until or in lieu of a revolutionary overthrow of the capitalist system, how can we hope to lessen or prevent? Instead of just temporarily staunch burnout, change might come from legislation, collective action, or continued feminist advocacy, but it's folly to imagine it will come from companies themselves. Our capacity to burn out and keep working is our greatest value. While writing this piece, I was orchestrating a move, planning travel, picking up prescriptions, walking my dog, trying to exercise, making dinner, attempting to participate in work conversations on Slack, posting photos to social media, and reading the news. I was waking up at 6 a.m. to write, packing boxes over lunch, moving piles of wood at dinner, falling into bed at 9. I was on the treadmill of the to-do list, one damn thing after another. But as I finished this piece, see, she was working in between doing all of that. Props to her. But as I finish this piece, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time. Catharsis. I feel great, I feel something, which is not something I've really felt upon the completion of a task in some time. Seeing myself, the parameters of my labor, and the cause of my burnout clearly. And it doesn't feel like the abyss. It doesn't feel hopeless. It's not a problem I can solve, but it's a reality I can acknowledge, paradigm through which I can understand my actions. In their writing on homelessness, social psychologist Devin Price has said that laziness, at least in the way most of us generally conceive of it, simply does not exist. If a person's behavior doesn't make sense to you, they write, it is because you're missing a part of their context. It's a simple, my behavior didn't make sense to me because I was missing part of the context. Burnout. I was too ashamed to admit I was experiencing it. I fancied myself too strong to succumb to it. I narrowed my definition of burnout to exclude my own behaviors and symptoms, but I was wrong. Well, you acknowledge it, but other people have to acknowledge it also, that it's what it is happening to you. But people want to just dismiss it and say, oh this and oh that, but they don't want to understand that it's true, that's what you're having, you know? A burnout. I think I have some of the answers to the specific questions that made me start writing this essay. Yours are probably somewhat or substantially different. I don't have a plan of action, other than to be more honest with myself about what I am and am not doing and why, and to try to disentangle myself from the idea that everything good is bad and everything bad is good. This isn't a task to complete or a line on a to-do list, or even a New Year's resolution. It's a way of thinking about life and what joy and meaning we can derive, not just from optimizing it, but living it, which is another way of saying it's actual work. Everything you do is actual work in a different way. So, I mean, you gotta let yourself go and get it all done, in my opinion, no matter how you go about it. Well, this concludes this article, and I'm sorry all you guys that my video is quite long, but hope you enjoy it. Check my social media down below, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm out.